Well, Heather, we're back together again for another episode. It's great to be with you.
Good to be with you too, Joe.
Well, you know the drill. We're going to start with some current events. We're going to move into our TV and movie quote of the week. We have our excellent thing we've learned this week. We're going to try to stump each other with two truths and a lie. One of our coaches is going to spotlight one of our members they're particularly proud of, and you're going to pick your favorite Woodard Report article of the week. So let's get started with current events. I'm going to let you kick us off here. Heather, what are you seeing out there?
So I feel a little bit like Dr. Obvious with this one. But I do think that it's a good reminder. So I had picked that financial scams are on the rise. And of course, with the age of AI, they're getting a whole lot better, Joe. I know for me anyway, I'm getting at least 3 calls per day on my phone and text messages. We're getting all kinds of crazy stuff. So this article was in CPA Practice Advisor. And what it's saying is 2 in 5 Americans have experienced financial fraud in the past 12 months. Right. So that's kind of crazy. And so that's really on the rise. And they're finding that more than half think they will be personally targeted again within the next year. So it's getting worse. So there's in this article, some really good steps to take. So credit monitoring. So I personally use LifeLock and have been using LifeLock for a really long time. I love it. It lets me know when they find my information on the dark web. If things hit my credit report, it's a great product. So it's pretty inexpensive. Shredding documents. So this is something in a paperless world. My shredder's in my basement, but I still have to be really diligent about I have documents that have personal information that need to be shredded. Using strong and unique passwords. Joe, you and I take it for granted that everyone has a password vault that they use. And I literally don't know. The only password I know is my master password for my password vault. I don't know passwords to anything. And that's the safest way to go. So, but the interesting thing, Joe, and I don't know if you find the same thing, is that I would say at least 3/4 of the people that I meet, that I talk to, don't have a password vault. Or they have a little book that, God forbid, you lose that little book and now somebody has all of your passwords to everything. Spam filters are important. And then obviously reporting the suspicious communication. So in your email agent, there's usually a report spam, report phishing, and use those, because that's how the cybersecurity companies are able to track what's going on and combat it with their software.
All of those are rock solid. And this isn't as much of an issue now as it was when I first spoke with Frank Abagnale on the inaugural episode of this podcast. If you want to go back to episodes 1 and 2, met with Frank Abagnale, who was portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie Catch Me If You Can. And he said, never use a scanner or a copier at places like UPS stores, FedEx stores, grocery stores, because they have hard drives. And when they scrap those materials, bad actors will buy them up for junk to get the hard drives and find anything they can that's stored on those. They're digital machines. They're not analog machines. So just little gotchas like that. And I know that when I walk into the UPS store, there are copiers sitting over there.
Yep.
So it's not like that there has to be somebody using them, or they would have cleared them out of there. You don't see them as much as grocery stores anymore. But those just gotta always be diligent and think through. So, fun fact: I do have a shredder, and I fill up the bin of shredded credit card applications alone once a week. I have to empty that thing out. So, all right. So, thanks. We can never forget that we have to be safe, and if that's a current newsworthy event that scams are on the rise, it makes sense. AI can now really start to fool you into thinking that whatever that correspondence is, that email link is, that it's very real. In my case,
it's a big part, Joe, of our strange new world too. And we actually have a session at Scaling New Heights. Jamie Pollock is going to be coming in and talking about how to combat this. So it'll be a great session for
the
folks.
New age of scam in the strange new world. I like it. All right.
Yeah.
So speaking of the strange new world, we had one of the pioneers of artificial intelligence kind of go off the map this month. They announced that they were closing down BotKeeper. We have articles on that at the Woodard Report. There are articles in the other major accounting media outlets about it. The big news this week is that Zendu has decided to purchase the Infinite platform from BotKeeper. Now, you're going to hear a lot of more simplified versions of this. Zendu is buying BotKeeper. Okay, just want to clear this up. They're not buying BotKeeper. BotKeeper was a shared service center with an artificial intelligence piece or component to it. And it was the combo of that really created AI-enabled outsourcing that was starting to tip the scales from outsourcing supplemented AI, right? They were tipping it. And so when BotKeeper announced they were shutting down, their whole Philippines crew was laid off. I have no indicators at this point that Zendu is spinning that outsource center back up in Philippines. I believe that everything I've read is, including what we published at the Woodard Report, is they're buying the Infinite platform. They're buying the technology. Now, what I think is very interesting about this, even more interesting than Zendu buying the Infinite technology, is the fact that we're seeing really sophisticated, forward, future-focused CAS practices morphing from just serving businesses to empowering other bookkeepers. Mm-hmm. Pilot was supposed to come in and just do to bookkeeping what Amazon did to retail sales. Bezos is an investor in Pilot. And what they found very quickly was we can only get so much traction. The best thing we can do is create a platform that enables bookkeepers. So they're coming to Scaling New Heights this year. Strange, there it goes, as it may seem, and they're going to be offering a program for bookkeepers to use their platform and be supported by them. Now, then Decimal was a bookkeeping practice, and now they don't do bookkeeping at all or CAS at all. They only empower accountants with their platform in a franchise model. And then you've got now Zendu, who was only supporting businesses. And now by purchasing the Infinite platform, they couple that with an announcement they will continue to support current Infinite users. Well, current Infinite users are CPA firms. So now Zendu appears to have gotten into the empowerment program, empowering other accounting professionals. I think you're going to see a lot more of this trend, Heather, where you're going to build up something amazing and either sell it to a CPA firm that needs the CAS, or you're going to have your CAS practice empower other CAS practices.
Joe, I think when I think about this, what's been happening with these companies that, like Pilot and Decimal and some of the other company and BotKeeper that went into the market, created this technology or created systems, and then decided, nope, we're going to get out of the actual client services and lean on the technology and hand that over and really make that available to the professionals that are already working with clients. This says to me that these technology companies don't really understand how to work with the clients. And the bookkeepers and accountants do. And I think a big part of that is the empathy and the understanding of being business owners themselves, right? But I think it's two pieces of that. One is the risk, right? It's a risky business in bookkeeping and accounting. If you have a dissatisfied client, it's a huge risk, right? You have errors and omissions. And then there's a lot of hand-holding. And when you're looking to optimize and standardize a process and build at scale, hand-holding is not a great component to that particular model.
I think you just hit the nail on the head, and I think it's the scale. Because it's arguable that coming in sort of from Mount Olympus down to earth, which is what Pilot did, that the ground game's a mystery to them. But then when you take the companies like Decimal and Zendu, and they're coming from the ground up, well, they very much understand how to be a business owner and run that B2B business. Correct. But scale was the key word. Can Zendu scale to the point where it's supporting tens of thousands of businesses, if that is indeed their dream? Can Decimal scale to that point without a franchise network or without a user base, zero being the user, Zendu being the user base, and decimal being the franchise, that you're only going to scale to a certain point with a CAS practice unless you have the air cover of, say, a top 50 CPA firm around you. But it's either a franchise model, a peer-to-peer model, or you're going to get absorbed into a top 50 firm if you want 10,000 CAS clients.
And you have to have the appetite to want to help. You have to have the appetite to want to be able to do that hand holding. If you don't, then probably not the right profession for you. It's just the
Yes, that's
reality of the
exactly right.
situation.
Yes. So, yeah, we're actually going to be breaking that down a little bit at the profitability workshop, and so I won't get too deep in the weeds on that. But this sort of a concept of penetration pricing is what QuickBooks Live, TurboTax Live, Pilot, H&R Block on tax, and HR Block Advisors, they're doing penetration pricing. Just everything's a scale game, and they're going to make it up on scale with tens of thousands of clients is the goal.
Right.
And so the individual CPA firm needs to think, okay, well, my job is primarily about the relationship. Package inside the relationship, have fewer clients, higher margins, higher revenues as a percentage of client count. Play a completely different game.
Yeah.
And with that, you're going to want to do something more between what's called neutral and skim pricing. But if that intrigued you, then you need to be in Vegas this May for our profitability workshop. But you can learn more about that at woodard.com. All right, so we've got to move on now. It's time for the TV and movie quote of the week. All right, Heather, what are you watching this week?
I'm rediscovering Portlandia. Have you ever
Never
watched
watched it.
Portlandia, Joe? You have never watched it?
No.
Hilarious. So, yeah, it's a hilarious show that's based on Portland, Oregon, and the quirkiness of Portland, Oregon. And it really is. It's got a couple of players from Saturday Night Live that have started it, and it's really it's hilarious. So one of the scenes, because it's kind of skitty, they do little skits throughout the episodes. So one of the scene that I took this quote from is two crafters are convinced that if they put a bird on ordinary objects, it will transform them. It'll magically transform them into something that everybody wants. And so the skit is they go into this boutique store and they say, put a bird on it. And that's their tagline, it's like, put a bird on it. And so they're putting these birds all over lamps and things. And it's really hilarious. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's ridiculous.
Well, you've already got my
So,
attention because that's my kind of humor. So, okay.
yeah, it's hilarious. So where this fits into business, because you're probably wondering, like, put a bird on it, Heather, is changing your brand, or getting a new website or getting a new business card does not magically change who you are as a business, right? Putting a bird on it doesn't make it something different. It certainly puts the impression of something different out into the world. But unless you're actually doing the work of transforming your firm and making changes to build a dream practice, you're just putting a bird on it, right? And
Yeah.
so it's and that's actually can be really disheartening. And I've seen a lot of not a lot of firms. I've seen some firms where this is really disheartening, is that they want to do the rebrand. They want to say, this is who I am, but they're not doing the work underneath to
So
actually,
it's paper thin. It's just putting a bird on it. All right.
yeah,
So I actually like that so much that I think we're going to incorporate that into our culture here as sort of term to make sure that we're not just putting a bird on it. That's a
I
really
love
cool
it.
thing. All right. So I'm watching A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I'm a Game of Thrones kind of universe junkie. And this is a particularly fun one. And Dunk, the protagonist, he's faced with a duel to the death, as happens in fantasy genres. So he's faced with a duel to the death, but he's got 6 different opponents. He's not the best knight of any of the 6. He has impossible odds, and you've really endeared yourself to this protagonist now. So you just do not want to see him, get killed on this tournament field on a battle to the death. And so his little squire asks him, "What are you going to do?" And he says, "I'm going to take it one foe at a time." Right. So now there's a business principle in this, because a lot of times the odds are stacked against us. A lot of times we feel like, there are six things that are tag teaming us, and every one of them feels bigger than us. As I'm recording this, I actually feel this right now. I've got several things that I'm dealing with that are really big items, and they're positive big items, very large organizations that want to do work with us. So I'm dancing with giants, not trying to slay them right now, but even dancing with them, you can get stepped on, metaphorically speaking. So, I kind of feel like this. I got, I have about three or four, not six things that are bigger than me right now. And it reminded me as I was watching through this, I don't have to take them all on. I have to take them each on. Get one done, give it all my attention and focus, see where it goes, move to the next one. And even if you're not dealing with giants, even if you're just dealing with maybe more like piranha than you are with orca, just by the sheer volume of the tasks they're eating you alive, you can still do the same thing. Just calm it all down, prioritize it one at a time. Just one at a time. So that's my truth from the Night to the Seven Kingdoms. And I'm not going to tell you what happened. That would be a spoiler alert.
And that's part of the Game of Thrones franchise, right?
Yes, it is. And
Okay.
since I didn't even spoil it by implication, they'll kill anybody in this show. So there's no
Oh, yeah.
spoiler alerts.
No doubt.
The protagonists could be alive. They could be dead. You have to
Who
watch to
knows?
find out.
Who knows?
So,
Yeah. But everybody's got they've got a target on their back. So
yes, exactly. That's part of the fun of being in that universe is
right.
even premium stars are not safe in this
No.
in this show. All right, now it's time for excellent thing we learned this week. Heather, what have you learned this week?
So I started reading a book about a year ago called More Than a Glitch by Meredith Broussard. And so she is an educator at Columbia. And her book is about confronting race, gender, and ability bias in tech. And I was rereading it again. I just picked it up again to start rereading it. And this one really kind of hit me because I think that there's a lot of, we're talking about AI all the time. Every episode, Joe, we're talking about AI because that's the world we live in now. And so I loved the way that she explained AI in chapter 2 of her book. So a general AI is the one that we think about, which is like Terminator and, the Borg and all that other stuff. And that's a myth that doesn't exist. It likely will never exist because, we're trying to recreate what's happening in our brains. And the reality of the situation is it isn't. What we have now is narrow AI. And we talked about that. That's the,
Narrow
generative
specific,
AI,
sometimes it's
things
called,
like that. And it's getting better and better. And we're thinking, oh, this intelligence is getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And the cool thing, the way she explains this just helps you really grasp it. And she says, AI, it's not a brain, it's math. That's all it is. It's math. And what she does in chapter 2 is she actually puts graphs. She starts with a linear graph of 2 data points, right? And that's how we measure. And then she starts to build on that throughout the book, through her narrative and through the, the images and the graphs that she's showing about how AI actually processes information. So, it uses statistical data. So you put data into it and then it uses statistical formulas, right, to write new algorithms. So that's how it's machine learning. So it's not like it's learning like a brain. It's learning because it's taking new data, running it through the algorithm, and then, basically adjusting the algorithm to incorporate it, right? So if you think about rule-based applications, those are very linear. If this, then that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we build on that. And so you can see in the applications that we've had over, my career, and certainly long before that, you just have layer after layer after layer of this rule-based logic, right? And that's what gives us the magic of computers. So machine learning applications are multidimensional, which means that they can perform very, very, very complex math calculations. And if you think about it, there's this image, that we've seen. Everybody's seen it of Einstein standing in front of a big chalkboard with these crazy mathematical formulas that he can read and understand, and that most of us
Or if
can't.
anybody's watched an episode of The Big Bang Theory, same kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So you see this, and for you and I, it looks like gibberish and it means literally nothing to us. But to the people that created it and the other mathematicians and physicists that understand this big math, they see language,
Mm.
right? And so if we can think about AI is not this magical, amazing thing, it's math. And what they've been able to do is to take these very complex mathematical equations and program the computers to run them. So it's basically a giant calculator and it's doing really amazing things, but I think it demystifies it. The way she demystifies artificial intelligence through the imagery that she has in chapter 2 and the way that she explains it just really helped me to understand this is not something that I can't understand. I may not read the math. I don't speak math.
Yeah.
Um,
But at least
or at least I don't
conceptually, you
speak
know
math at that
how it's
level.
getting from A to B. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the excellent thing I learned because that is something I'm sure I'm not the only one that struggles with understanding how machine learning and artificial intelligence work. So I just really loved it. And her book is about, I don't want to lose this because her book is about how, because this is math, the data that we put into these, machine learning, these AI models is what's going to give us our results. And so it's very easy for us to become super biased, right? One of the examples, the first example she gives in her book in chapter 1 is when she's posing the problem of bias in tech, is she talks about soap dispensers in the bathrooms. Right now we go in, we have the touchless soap dispensers where we put our hands in and the soap comes out. And she talks about how when those were first designed, people bought them and put them in their bathrooms, and they found that people with brown skin, they didn't work when
Because the
they put their
testers
hand.
had a particular skin tone, and that's how they programmed it around that in
Exactly
testing.
right.
Is that what it was? Yes.
And so it's the same thing is that, we have to be careful when when we're putting data in that we're representing
Hmm.
everyone, which
Yep.
is hard.
So, yeah, there was a lot to unpack there. And yeah, probabilities is another key term. It's basing its conclusions on math, but it's doing it with probabilities. So 1+1 is probably 2.
Hmm.
And its probability finding on that's probably 99.9999999, right? Probability that 1+1 equals 2. And so then once it knows with a near certainty what's probably the answer to the math
Yes,
equation, it can use those probabilities then to do math. It's a weird way it goes at it.
it is
Um,
weird because it's
yes,
imperfect.
because it's imperfect. Yes.
Yes.
So I would recommend also reading a book called "If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies." And in that book, the author also breaks down how the artificial intelligence makes the conclusions it makes, but also distinguishes between something you program and something you grow. Programmers of artificial intelligence talk about growing AI; they don't talk about building AI. So it's
Mm,
yes, it it
that makes sense.
exists
I love that.
independently of its programmer once it's launched. That's an interesting thought.
Mm.
Okay, so the interesting thing that I've learned today or this week is that even though humans, depending on what your theology is or not is, based on science, I'll give a scientific answer here. Humans have been around for about 200,000 years in our present form. Okay, if you're happen to listen to the podcast and you take a religious view, you might say 6,000 years. Either way, it'll make my point. We've only been living by the clock for 175 years. For
Hmm.
175 years, we've tracked time. The so and I'll add that if you were alive in the 1850s, you didn't even own a timepiece. It wasn't this just that you didn't track time; it's that you couldn't track time because only the super wealthy had a timepiece in their pocket. So everybody up to about 150 years ago or so only tracked time based on the movement of the sun. It was the morning, it was the afternoon, it was dusk, it was dark. Um, Everything was measured in terms of outputs. How many items did I make as a blacksmith that day? How much milk did I get from the cows on my farm that day? What was the yield of my crop that day? Or how many rows did I plow that day? We only started measuring time during the industrial age, and not even right when that happened. We started doing it after the industrial age, whenever, and get this, humans began to be measured in the same way that equipment was measured, as a cost of production. Humans were not a cost of production until the industrial age. And once humans become a cost of production, they began to be tracked by how many hours they as machines on the machine line operated, because they're a cost measurement. And then the union stepped in because they realized if they can salary those workers, they can work those machines disproportionate to their livelihood. Unions had to come in to protect that. And then we started getting this compression that created the 8-hour workday. None of that existed on the 8-hour workday until the late 1800s, early 1900s. And still, people did not have watches on their wrists until decades after that. So time has only even been relevant to the human species for about 180 years of our existence, and only measured ubiquitously for the last 5 to 6 decades. Yet, we think it's an asset. we bill around it and create entire practice models around it, when we can't measure it, we can't control it. Well, we can measure it. We can't control it. We can't manage it, and it isn't valuable. So, time, if you're listening to this, this is a thought bomb from Ron Baker. Time is not an asset. Time is a constraint. The question is, within the constraint of time, what are you going to get done? What impacts are you going to make? What outcomes are you going to drive? And what purpose are you going to fulfill? All right. That's my thing of the week.
I love it. My big question is, before time, when you were going to meet somebody for coffee.
Yeah. You would say, I'll meet you.
Do that? How would you do that? When the sun reaches?
You would say in the morning, in the afternoon. Sometimes things were measured based on events that, like, let's go grab a bite after milking. Well, they're going to milk their cows the same time I'm going to milk my cows, and then when we're done, we're going to meet for a cup of coffee. There was even an example in the book where time was measured by one culture on how long it takes to eat a banana, and so then they would multiply that by 5x, 10x. So they had a word for it, and it would be 15 banana eatings, whatever that word was. So they got by. They just didn't need time, and definitely not to the minute.
Interesting.
So yeah. So I guess the biggest takeaway from that is, professional service companies, do we really want to value ourselves the way that the Titans valued the individual, undervalued, overworked, disadvantaged industry workers of the early industrial age? Because if we do that to ourselves on billing by 6-minute increments, we are diminishing ourselves to the way they were treated before unions rose up in the industrial age.
Yeah.
All right. That may be the biggest takeaway from that truth. Stop doing that to ourselves. Definitely stop doing that to our folks who are working with us.
Right.
Now it's time for 2 truths and a lie. Okay, Heather, usually you always win at this game. I was thinking about this last night when I was putting this together, and I think I have a tell. I think I want to turn my camera off almost for this segment, because I'm giving you something. I don't know. You're just getting them right way too many times. But let's start with yours, and let's see if I can guess yours, and see if maybe I can tell what your tell is. Go ahead.
So mine's unfair. I realized it was unfair after I wrote it, because you may not even know what this is. So I'm going to ask you first. Do you know what a dome ledger is? A dome ledger book?
No idea.
Okay.
That's right, okay. We can still play the game. We'll all learn.
All right, we're still going to play the game. So I'm going to explain what a dome ledger book is. A dome ledger book is a book where you keep track of your income and expenses as a business owner, and each each day, each page is a day, and you write in your total income, all your expenses, and your net profit, and you can make other notes on it. And so what you do is you fill out a page, turn the page, then the next day you put in that day, and then you total, right? And so then it totals by day, by week, by month, and finally by year. And so it's a very simplified bookkeeping system for very small micro businesses, right? And it's a book. It's not computerized.
Okay.
Anyway, it wasn't originally computerized. So now you're not going to be able to get this because you have no idea.
That's okay, but I can put it on the thing I learned this week next week. So
you could. Okay.
Okay.
So the Dome Ledger was created in 1940 in Warwick, Rhode Island. So that's fact number one. Number two is the Dome bookkeeping system was developed into a software product called Dome Digital. And number three is the Dome Ledger is the only accounting system that uses a single entry bookkeeping system.
All right. Because of the existence of blockchains, I will say that the Dome Ledger is not the only system that uses a single entry bookkeeping because, yes, distributed ledgers do that. Yes.
You got it right.
That has to be untrue. It might have been true 10 years ago. It's not true today because we have distributed ledger systems. All right. So thing three is the lie.
That's right. You got it right.
But I got it right from a weird angle. Yes.
Well, it is from a weird angle, but also Quicken. So Quicken was a single entry system. It had no balance sheet, which was what drove us all crazy, right? Yeah. So, yeah. No, so you got it right. You got it right.
I'd forgotten that Quicken was also single entry. So you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So since this episode's going to air in the middle of March 2026, I thought I'd have some fun and do an Ides of March, 2 truths and a lie. So all of mine are going to be about Julius Caesar. So Julius Caesar was the first Roman leader to have his face placed on a Roman coin while he was still alive. Obviously, there were many Caesars on many coins. Thing number two, Julius Caesar was kidnapped by pirates as a young man and later returned to capture and execute those pirates. And number three, Julius Caesar invented the Julian calendar, which introduced the 365-day year, including a leap year.
Interesting. So the pirates thing, I don't know. I am stumped, so I'm probably going to be guessing here. The Julian calendar, which was introduced in 365-day years, I have no idea. That sounds true, but I don't know. The pirate thing sounds like a really good movie or story, but again, I don't know.
It would make a good movie, wouldn't it?
Right. And I believe that Julius Caesar could be the first Roman leader to have his face placed on a Roman coin while still alive. So, I mean, I feel like all of these could be true. So I guess I'm just going to have to guess.
Okay.
And maybe I'll get lucky because if I win, well, if I get it, then I'm just
chance of getting right. Exactly.
All right. So I'm going to say thing three is the lie, that he did not invent a Julian calendar.
And somehow you got it right again. So he did not invent it. It was invented by Egyptian astronomers, and he then pushed it through Rome. So he brought it to the Roman Empire, but it was invented by Egyptian astronomers. So very good call. Interestingly enough, they were off only by a fraction of a day. So I learned something new when I was researching all of this for the game, that we aren't on the Julian calendar. We're on the Gregorian calendar, which means we have a leap year every 4 years, except on the 100th year. And we skip the leap year on the 100th year. Because if we don't, we, after several centuries, we're off by a day.
Okay.
Yeah. So lots of fun things here about calendars and Julius Caesar.
Right.
All right. So now it's time. So you won again. So bottom line is you won again. All right. So it's time for, actually, no, we tied. Sorry.
We tied on this one.
We tied on this one. All right. So time for the member spotlight.
Thanks. Look, I'm really excited about how I'm going to really describe what Melissa Honan is going to do. Melissa is one of our members, obviously, and she is the COO at their company, Profitable Painter CPA. What they do is they're niched, or they specialize in helping painters, residential, commercial. Look, get your stuff going. Let's get your book set. Let's get you set for success. In the last year, they've been very focused on growing their team, getting the morale, and it's so important to get that culture right. And they have really been killing it in the last year. The last 6 months, I think they've gotten more five-star reviews from their clients than they've ever gotten. They've increased their kudos, if you will, from internally with the team, with each other. Increased attendance as far as social and office hour things go. The internal company reports are good. And you think all that's good. And then it gets even better. Their profit is up. She calls it a labor of love. And there's a lot of labor involved. So, but they're doing good. They grew, I think they went from 38% to like 47% just last year. The goal was only 45%. So I'm quite proud of Melissa. It's got a lot going on and has overcome all of it so far. The other thing I wanted to mention for them, I think just important to know, I think the revenue went from about 2.5 to just over 3 million in 2025. So they're growing, they're helping their customers grow. It is just a phenomenal, been a phenomenal year for them. But not without making sure the team was also, what do I want to say, included in that. The team she's put together is amazing. So everything is just going fantastic right now from a business standpoint, and looking to keep that momentum and keep going. So that's my member spotlight today. Melissa Honan, they're killing it.
Thank you so much for sharing that extremely exciting story about one of our members. If you're interested in learning more about how you can also be a member of Woodard, experience some of that same goodness, you can learn more at woodard.com. Just go to our coaching drop-down menu. All right, Heather, you always pick a favorite Woodard Report article of the week to wrap us up. What did you pick this week?
So I picked an article that Kara Kennedy and I have been working on. We were approached by Intuit back in January when they were talking about their Intuit Career Pipeline Program for accountants, which is a pilot program that they did out of the University of Utah. It's University of Utah. And we met with Simon Williams. We met with Dr. David Waite, who is a professor in that program, who he really had the vision for it and helped to design it. Other instructors in the program are Brittany Brown and Dan Luthi. And we also met with a student, Cameron, who actually has been through the program. So we really are excited about what Intuit is doing and what they're bringing to the university in Utah, and I'm hoping that this will actually get rolled out in other colleges and universities, because what they're doing is they're actually teaching actionable skills. So it's not just theory. They're actually working in QuickBooks Online companies, and they're completing workflows. They're doing month-end closes, and then they have these really cool moments where they'll stop the students in the middle of working on a project within the classroom, and they'll say, "Oh, client just called and they have this question. How are you going to handle it?" Very, very cool stuff. So
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. I'm excited about it. And you should check out the article to learn more about what they're doing. And I think it's really exciting.
Especially if somehow Intuit can connect the people going through this program to the firms that are looking for talent coming out of the college systems. That would be phenomenal.
And
All
we
right, well,
touch on that in the article. Yeah. So
that's right.
that's exactly what they're trying to do. Is they found a huge disconnect between, the students that are graduating from the programs and what they have and the actual practical skills that they have that the firms need. And so they're trying to bridge that gap. So definitely check out that article. It's really exciting. I'm excited that they're doing this.
Yeah, good for them. That's an empowerment of the profession, and I'm really happy for the students, and the firms are going to benefit from that. Another great source if you're looking for talent coming out of the college system. somebody with existent programs would be the National Association of Black Accountants, NABA. A lot of people don't know that they have recruitment events, two big ones that take place every year. Usually one's in DC and the other one kind of floats around the country. But that's all accounting students, all looking for jobs. I had it's a different program than what you're describing in their article. So little apple and orange there, but amazing talent, impressive kids. I had the honor of presenting a keynote at one of those regional events. There were like 3,000 or 4,000 accounting students there.
Wow.
And then they were coming up and engaging me for nearly an hour with questions afterwards. So between the going with the Intuit program, between organizations like NABA, you can find the talent. You just have to know who to partner with.
Yes. And just a clarification, it's university, it's the Utah Valley University, not University of Utah.
Utah Valley University. All right. But that's the pilot program. Like I said, hopefully it'll spread from there. Well, Heather, that's a wrap. It's been great being with you. We'll see you next time.
Okay. See you later, everybody.